Wasn't it lovely to hear the reading from the First Nations Bible, the Indigenous translation? I just discovered this New Testament translation a month ago, maybe 6-7 weeks ago. It was published a year ago. So it's just out, only a year old. And we'll be using that translation for some of our New Testament scriptures, and we hear it with a different ear, and it opens our eyes to the wonders of scripture in a new way. Anybody know what holiday last Friday was 2 days ago? Yeah. I've got a plan. Nancy doesn't know she's going to appear in the sermon, but there it is. It was International Dogs Day. And a few of you might have known that. I wasn't aware of it this year until Nancy posted photos of all the beloved dogs in her life. And I don't know how many dogs she has accumulated over the years, but there are a lot. And she included a photo of Denali, who now resides on the other side of the Rainbow Bridge, and a photo of our yellow lab, Ivy, among many other dogs in her care. It was sweet and thoughtful to have our beloved dogs in her post. And you need to know from the pulpit, from me, that I am not a dog person. 6 years, I got tested for allergies, and apparently I was allergic to a number of things. Dust mites, trees, and grass in this arm, shots for 5 years, and dog, cat in this arm. I am not a dog person. Some of you will not agree with this statement. That is, here's a qualifier. I was never a dog person until I met Angie. And at that point, it was love me, love my dogs. And so I have accepted. You need to accept things when things don't necessarily work out the way you thought they would. You have to accept things. And I accept in my life that dogs will forever be a part of my life because of the one that I love. I shared this with Angie, and she said, well, who is the one you love? Is it Ivy or is it me? I have been known to say in my out loud voice to both Denali and to Ivy, who's the best puppy? Am I alone in these words? All right, raise your hand if you've ever had an animal. How's that? Oh, I am not alone. But, you know, when we get around babies or cute, adorable animals, all of a sudden our voices change, our demeanors change. Who's the best puppy? Ivy doesn't have to do anything special for Angie and I to look at each other and said, look at how cute your puppy is. She's so adorable. So this may sound like the introduction for the Blessing of the Animals sermon, which we canceled it, postponed it last week. It's coming up in 2 weeks. So you might hear this intro again. I mean, it's a good intro, but this is actually about our relationship with God and contemplative practices that can draw us closer to God. It's easy for us to gush about Ivy. She's a beautiful creature, and easy for us to exclaim over and over on the hour how cute she is. But now I want you to imagine that God is looking at you in the same way that we look at our beloved dog, Ivy. Can you imagine God saying, there's my beautiful human that I created. Look at them. Oh, they're all so cute. Oh, what have my beloved humans done now? What a mess they've gotten themselves into. But they are my beloved humans, and they belong to me. Can you hear God? Can you hear divine presence exclaiming and gushing over you? I remember growing up singing a song based on Song of Songs or Song of Solomon, chapter 2. I didn't realize until recently that this song that I learned as a itty bitty kid came from this book of the Bible, Song of Songs. Maybe you learned it too. He called me to his banqueting table. What? Banner over me is love. He called me to his banqueting table. His banner over me is love. He called me to his banqueting table. His banner over me is love. His banner over me is love. And this is before we had inclusive language for our songs and our hymns that I learned. And so it took too much trouble to try to make this inclusive, or I chose not to. There's another verse. I am the vine. No, God is the vine. He is the vine. And what are we? Let me see it. Let me see your branches. His banner over me. Oh, we need a photo of the back row. And then there is another verse. Angie said she didn't learn this one. I am my beloved's, and he is mine. His banner over me is love. I am my beloved. God is mine. There's another verse in the Song of Songs, chapter 4, verse 1, that is similar, recalling God's love for us. Look at you, so beautiful, my dearest one. Look at you, so beautiful. When was the last time someone called you my dearest? Was it this morning? Was it 10 years ago when you were a child? When was the last time you called someone my dearest other than someone who lives with you in your home? There are a few people in this congregation that I can imagine saying that to anyone in the congregation, and they do it just so easily. They'll say, dear one, beloved one. That's what God calls us, my dearest one. Look at you, so beautiful. After worship, I was going to do this during worship, invite you to look at somebody outside of your household, but after worship, I'm going to challenge you to go up to someone and say, my dearest one, you are so beautiful, and I'm so glad you are here. You can do that on Zoom right now. You can look at, the whole, all of the screens on Zoom, but let's practice that just so you don't forget, so you get it memorized, you get it in your bodies and in your voices. My dearest one, how beautiful you are. Let's try that. My dearest one, how beautiful you are. How many of you are going to be up for the challenge? Just want to see the bold ones. Who are the courageous ones? 14th century mystic Julian of Norwich uses beautiful language like the Song of Songs to talk about our lived experience in the world and our eternal union with the divine. She writes, Mother Christ, Holy Wisdom, wishes us to be aware that humanity's dear worthy soul was preciously knit to him in the creation, and this knot is so powerful that it is oned into God. Oned or oned, O-N-E-ed. This knot is so powerful that it is oned into God. In this oning, O-N-E-ing, it is made endlessly holy. I don't think I've ever heard this word before, dear-worthy. Not D-E-E-R, but D-E-A-R, dear-worthy. Did you know that you are dear-worthy? What a tender, intimate word. It's not about being worthy by earning it, but that our fundamental nature is to be loved. It is an inherent quality. We were created to be dear-worthy, to be connected to the beloved. While it's easy to think in those terms when it becomes to beloved pets or babies, sometimes it's much more difficult to remember when it comes to our own lives that we have dear-worthy souls, or to remember that our neighbor to whom God calls us to love also have dear-worthy souls. Sometimes it's difficult to remember when they are being irritating, when they push our buttons or they cut us off, to remember that they have dear-worthy souls. It's easy to forget that there is within us something worth being loved in being created purely for our existence. In an interview with Dr. Marcia McPhee, who created this worship series, Beguiled by Love, and Dr. Wendy Farley, who wrote the book, they talk about how as human beings, we often think that we are worthy when we accomplish certain things, when we fulfill certain obligations, when we are productive. Whatever our categories of being worthy are, that our worthiness comes from something we do to merit it. Certainly the things we do are important, they say, but life with the beloved is not for something else. It's not to be saved. It's not to be a better person, although that may be a byproduct, that we are simply made for the beloved, that that's the way divine love works, that we are lured, beguiled by love into this relationship with the divine. This theology goes against much of our culture and the way many of us were raised. I imagine some of us received the message that you are worthy when. You are worthy when you got 100% on that test, not a 98. When you have done X, Y, and Z, when you have accomplished this or that. And once you have done that, the next chore needs to be completed, or the next accomplishment needs to be ticked off the list. Or you need to think about what value you bring. That's what our culture teaches us. Except that in God's economy, doing does not take the place of what you are worth. There is not enough accomplishment to make us worthy of love. So Wendy Farley and Marcia McPhee talk about how distortion emerges when we confuse our work, our vocation, with our worth. We can still produce, but if we know that we are loved, it comes from a peaceful place, not an anxious place of earning it. And our mindset can shift with contemplative practice. In this book, Beguiled by Beauty, Dr. Wendy Farley writes, There is therefore a deep paradox at the heart of contemplation. It requires energy, devotion, attention, and commitment. But it also requires that we forge ahead without attaching ourselves too strenuously to our idea of what should happen. How often do we attach ourselves to outcome? We want control. And Dr. Farley writes, it is not the renunciation of effort. When we see things go badly astray, regardless of our deep commitments, we are pained. But this renunciation of outcome creates a reservoir of peace, even in the midst of turmoil. Relinquishing control is difficult and yet a fundamental practice. We can make an effort in our work, but we don't control what happens. This is purity of vocation. You do what you are called to do because you are called to do it. No more, no less, and there is joy and peace in that work. We do our work because the work in itself is good to do, and we can do it with great heart. We can perform our vocation with full heart, but without anxiety, which is difficult for us because we want the outcome. That's why we're doing the work in the first place, for the outcome. But we don't control the outcome, so we need to let go of that which we cannot control. We can hope for it, but we cannot control it. By loosening attachments to the outcome, we begin to practice for the sake of practice itself. We do not engage in prayer in order to achieve something or earn something, but because it is a good thing to do. We can relax into the practices and release ourselves from the anxiety that we accomplish something. We also begin to release expectations of ourselves. And not only ourselves, we begin to release expectations of other people as well. So many times unconsciously, for the most part, sometimes consciously, we have expectations of other people, and we may not realize it until the outcome is not something that we desired in the first place. And then we can get resentful and angry and upset, but that's not what we want to bring to God. And so we present to God, right? Or we stay away from God. Remembering that we are dear worthy and that others are dear worthy as well. And to this we might say, oh dear. Or we might reframe and say, oh dear, as we look at one another, dear one, you dear worthy soul. So how do we relax into these contemplative practices, or relax into the heart of God, like the words of Psalm 27, that we may live in God's dwelling place all the days of our life and never cease to behold the beauty of God's home? Or like St. Augustine's famous quote, thou hast formed us for thyself, and our hearts are restless till they find their rest in thee, O God. How do we move from a restless, anxious, worrying place full of expectations to a place of deep rest in the heart of God? So I'm going to bring Ivy back into the sermon, because these quotes remind me of Ivy, and Ivy is teaching me a lot about prayer and presence. So we have a meditation in our living room. Well, currently it resides at the foot of the pulpit. And it is rarely used for meditation, except by Ivy. We find her frequently in contemplation and prayer, with her eyes closed, gently resting on the meditation pillow. Later this afternoon, perhaps I'll send you photos if I catch her meditating, praying on the meditation pillow. She's communing with the divine, I'm sure of it. So I'm going to do a bold and courageous thing, and we'll see how this goes. If I can get down and then if I can get back up. So I'm going to make a shift out of the pulpit over into our living room, which is now at the foot of the pulpit. So sometimes I will take over Ivy's meditation pillow because she should not be the only creature in our house who is allowed to commune with the divine. Covered in fur or lap litter, as they call it. And she'll circle around me, and she'll pace back and forth, and she'll circle around me until something I need. There's a moment, not quite like that moment, where I can hear her breathing begin to shift, and she stops her anxious, like, I don't want to, as I'm petting her and stroking her and saying, oh, who's the best puppy? You're so cute. You're so adorable. And she will rest. I can literally feel her body come to a place of deep rest. And she knows that she is safe, that she is secure, that she is loved. All right, we'll see how the getting up goes. Only one hand. From panting and excited, anxious and resistant, to relaxed. And that's my newest analogy to my own experience with divine love. Anxious, resistant, pacing back and forth before God. I don't want to, I'm too busy, God. There are things I don't want to share with you. I'll catch you later at night. Grunting, resistant. To feeling completely relaxed and loved in God's presence. If only I can remember that, what Ivy goes through in her little dance of resistance and grunting to finding her rest, not in God, but in her human in that moment. But it's definitely a journey between anxious, resistant pacing and feeling dear-worthy and loved. Dr. Farley writes, sometimes contemplative prayer can be a harrowing practice because many difficult realizations arise that we have previously managed, we think successfully, to tamp down, to conceal, repress. We cannot bear to see those ugly parts of ourselves unearthed, so alien to our good intentions or self-image. We cannot bear to feel so naked and exposed in our imperfections. Our ego mind has been hard at work to preserve us from those aspects of ourselves that are too painful to acknowledge. It might be a bad memory, a feeling of guilt, a disturbing habit we can neither abandon nor ignore. We often add to this inherent discomfort the additional mental pattern of condemnation, disgust, or self-loathing. If you notice your unease, anger, fear, dissatisfaction with benevolence, the ancient texts would say, bring this to Christ. Let Christ help you interpret it. Contemplative practices enable us to take a time out when we are angry or anxious, as we sit quietly and notice the mental patterns with the beloved who does not judge us. And she continues to write, giving only a few minutes a day to contemplation can be a powerful practice. It begins to feed the desire, to plant the desire to desire what God wants, and the desire for silence and prayer when life circumstances are conspiring against you. Even the tiniest stream, the most minute turning of the mind toward the divine, dwells in eternity. Isn't that beautiful to imagine that even the smallest gesture, the smallest turn toward the divine dwells in eternity? In a mysterious way, clinging to this desire, this 30-second prayer can open the next door to desire more. The ancient texts and Christian mystics teach that it can be challenging to trust that who we are is exactly who we are supposed to be, and that we are beautifully and wonderfully made and loved. No matter what your struggles and challenges, you don't have to try to be perfect or have it all together before you approach God in prayer. Contemplative practices help us reduce the influence of negative mental patterns, enabling us to accept ourselves and be at peace with ourselves, and subsequently accepting of others. Next week, we will do a deeper dive into various kinds of contemplative practices. And in the coming months and weeks, there will be more opportunities to explore some contemplative practices together. My friends, I invite you this day to hear the Creator, our beloved, say to you, look at you, so beautiful, my dearest. You are dear worthy. Look at you, so beautiful. You will always be God's dear worthy souls. May it be so.